Good morning. My name is David Walker. I'm the chairman of the Rochester Regional Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to the Community Outlook Breakfast. Before we hear from our panel discussion, we'd like to hear from the four groups we have assembled this morning, starting with the Rochester Community Schools.
Hello, I'm Robert Shaner, Superintendent for Rochester Community Schools. Thank you for inviting us to be part of the annual Community Outlook Breakfast. I'm joined here today by members of the Board of Education and by members of the Administrative Cabinet. Our partners in local business and higher education tell us that the best jobs of the future will go to people who are adept at problem solving, information technology, teamwork, collaboration, creativity, and innovation. At Rochester Community Schools, we're committed to providing a quality education and a caring atmosphere so students can attain the necessary skills and knowledge to become lifelong learners and contribute to a diverse, interdependent, and changing world. Our vision of college-ready, career-ready, and life-ready has been the catalyst for developing a comprehensive K-12 educational experience. Recently, the Rochester Community Schools Board of Education approved Pride in Excellence Strategic Plan 2020 that will guide us in strengthening our curriculum, improving our infrastructure, and expanding global awareness for our students to ensure they receive a world-class education. In support of our strategic plan, subcommittees have been formed to investigate options for potential implementation and enhancement of programs, practices, and support systems within our curriculum. One specific initiative that makes us extremely proud involves researching opportunities to determine the next steps for expanding our K-5 world language offerings in Chinese as well as other languages. We are currently partnering with Michigan State University's Confucius Institute and conferring with the Oakland Schools World Language Consultant to get recommendations on best practices so our students can be exposed to a dynamic cultural experience. With this knowledge, our students can be empowered global stewards who are inspired to have a positive impact on their community, their country, and the world. The strategic plan also guides us in our efforts to ensure a safe, secure, flexible, and adaptable learning environment for our greater Rochester students by focusing resources on developing and enhancing assets, which includes people, innovative partnerships, and state-of-the-art technologies, as well as infrastructure. We would not be the high-achieving school district that we are without dedicated and caring individuals serving our children. As the 16th largest employer in Oakland County, we recruit and retain the best and the brightest, highly qualified teachers, administrators, and support staff. We have much to be proud of in the Rochester Community Schools. Our students take top honors in almost every field and match their talents with their generosity. But today's not about where we've been, it's about where we're going, and I can assure you that we're headed for great things. I'm excited to be on that journey, and I invite you to join me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shaner. It's never too early for students to learn a foreign language. And now let's hear from Oakland Township.
Good morning. Welcome to the Charter Township of Oakland. This township is one of the jewels of Oakland County, if not all of Southeast Michigan. With its diversity of rolling hills, lakes, streams, parks, woodlands, prairies, agriculture, cider mills, historic structures, and overall rural character, it has become the premier residential community. Historically speaking, Oakland Township has the distinction of being one of the state's oldest townships, being one of the original 25 when the territory of Michigan was organized in 1827. Going back a bit further, Oakland Township was one of the two original townships erected in Oakland County in 1820. While it was historically an agricultural area comprised mostly of dairy farms, the last 40 to 50 years have seen it grow and transform into its current demographic of many estate-sized homes and lots and a population of 17,000 residents. Indeed, last fall, Oakland Township was the site of the very successful 2014 Homeorama, a collection of 6 multi-million-dollar luxury homes at the Pinnacle development on Silver Bell Road. Recent changes in the government of Oakland Township have seen a major change to the 21st century electronic age with full transparency. A particularly notable occurrence is that Oakland Township has the distinction of being the only municipality in the state of Michigan to have lowered millage rates each of the past 2 years. And while lowering the millage, we have maintained all public services, including an increase in public safety, with staff additions to the sheriff's substation, new fire department advanced life support ambulances, a healthy fund balance, and a AAA Moody's bond rating. To address continued growth, this year we'll see the township addressing such big issues as a new master land plan, zoning ordinance changes to support the master land plan, ordinance updates, community water system upgrades, gravel road surface improvements, and invasive species control and eradication. Addressing these issues thoughtfully will set the direction for the next 25 to 50 years of township growth.
Thank you, Terry. And speaking of Home-A-Rama, it was a wonderful opportunity to have Home-A-Rama right here in our backyard in Oakland Township. What a wonderful opportunity. And now, speaking of wonderful opportunities, let's hear from the City of Rochester.
Good morning, friends, and thank you to the Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce for hosting this Community Outlook Breakfast. On behalf of the City of Rochester, it's my pleasure to present to you again. And I'm happy to tell you that things are booming in Rochester. Leading this trend is an actual overall home values increase of over 23% last year, and residential and commercial developments, both approved and in construction, totaling over $100 million of new investment. As a result, Rochester is projecting a 3.8% growth in property tax revenue dollars, not including the value of these new developments. This investment and growth is taking place in a well-run city government which is also investing in its future, particularly in our comprehensive parking management system with 2 new platforms which will be opened this spring and fall respectively. Construction, being led by Rochester-based Frank Rewald & Son, is well underway, very cold weather notwithstanding. Underscoring Rochester's solid financial position and good management practices, in the course of the city's financing of its parking platforms, was recently given a AAA bond rating from Standard & Poor's Rating Service. Rochester is just one of 2 communities in the state with a population less than 20,000 to receive this highest bond rating, and the result of this new rating is that it will save over $1.75 million in interest expense for the public in our parking construction project alone. In closing, with all your help and commitment, Rochester is clearly leading the way upward in northern Oakland County, and we are excited about a dynamic year ahead.
Thank you, Jeff. Continued changes in downtown Rochester and the landscape, especially with that new parking structure. How excited we are about that. And now, let's hear from the City of Rochester Hills.
Good morning. It's my privilege to have just a few short minutes to share with you some of the great things happening in Rochester Hills. Our city is having unparalleled success, and the results have been evident in nearly every aspect of city life. Residents and businesses continue to flock to the city in 2014, as building permits, revenue, and overall investment was up 68%. Rochester Hills led all of our neighbors in housing value increases in 2014, and currently we have over 700 single-family homes, site condos, and apartments in some stage of development. The commercial side is just as hot, as spaces are filling up across town, and the city now enjoys the highest occupancy rate in our history. More companies are moving in from around the globe, like Aduxi from France and Enzi from South Korea, and hiring employees as quickly as they can find them. Our economic attraction efforts are absolutely working, as our unemployment rate is now the 2nd lowest in the state at just 3.2%. Just like many of the small business owners in the room today, one of the most important responsibilities I have is managing our city's finances. And despite losing 20% of our revenue, we've saved more than we've spent and dramatically grown our fund balances to the point that we're now investing heavily in our local neighborhood roads. We've maintained our AAA bond rating, the highest rating possible, and are pleased to be recognized by Plant Moran as being in the top 5% of Michigan municipalities for financial stability. When it comes to managing our residents' money, nobody does it better. I'm equally proud to lead...
Excuse me, Mayor Barnett?
Yes.
Yes, I have Mayor Cuthbertson on the line. He wants to wish you and the city congratulations on being in the top 10 again.
You know, could you just take another message for me, please?
Sure, thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. I am equally proud to lead the most innovative team in local government. From being the first in the state to introduce 3-year budgets, incentivize recycling, and to have our own app, Rochester Hills employees are some of the most recognized and awarded in the state. And one of the things I am most proud of has been our commitment to the environment. Whether it's leading the state in recycling or the purchase of hundreds of acres of green space, Rochester Hills is leading the way. This morning at our press conference, I launched our newest environmental initiative, One Home, One Tree, a plan to plant 25,000 trees over the next 12 months. With America's largest Beb Oak as our inspiration, we will be rolling out all of the phases of the most aggressive tree planting program in Michigan over the next few weeks. We are proud to be Michigan's green leader and know our residents will help us accomplish this impressive goal. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are in the crowd and are a resident of Rochester Hills, I hope you are smiling and proud of your community. When we asked in our most recent statistically significant survey, 99 out of every 100 residents reported being happy and satisfied with living in Rochester Hills. 99%, the highest total in city history. Which leads me to my final point. With innovative employees, happy residents, and exciting new initiatives, our residents weren't the only ones to take notice of our success. Money Magazine, in the most sought-after listing for municipalities, looked across the country and ranked Rochester Hills as the #1 city in Michigan and the #9 best city in the nation in which to live. And with 33,000 places to live in America, that's something we can all be proud of.
Excuse me, Mayor, but you received more flowers from Mayor Cuthbertson.
Oh, thanks. I'm grateful to serve as your mayor and look forward to keeping Rochester Hills the preeminent place to live, work, and raise your family for many years to come. And thanks, Jeff, for the flowers.
Thank you, Brian. It's always good to hear about new businesses opening in our area. But I know in years past, they used to take a lot more jabs at each other. Oh, maybe they are. Before we get to our panel discussion, let's hear from the lighter side of our program this morning.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Cuthbertson, Mayor of the City of Rochester, where you live. I'm honored and humbled to ask to speak today on two of my favorite topics, our AAA bond rating and the new parking strategy. As you know, AAA is a venerable insurance company with millions of members nationwide. This is why the city is so honored to have received their highest rating for a platform parking construction project bonds. This recognition will further strengthen the city's ability to attract the highest caliber of business and industry. Excuse me for a moment. Oh, okay, Mr. Vitrano. Mr. Vitrano has just informed me that AAA ratings come from Standard & Poor's, which is also a highly regarded organization. In fact, I plan on recommending to the City Council the next time we go for a bond rating, we should shoot for quadruple A. I know we can do it. That leads to my second topic, our parking strategy, proposed by the Parking Advisory Committee, which introduces new, vastly improved options for temporary vehicular domiciling. In this first phase, our new technologically enhanced parking meters eliminate the need for carrying bulky, noisy quarters, nickels, and dimes by introducing the convenience of swiping a credit card. The second phase of our parking strategy creates a systemic parking management system, which includes but is not limited to the construction of 2 parking platforms. Today, I'm sharing with you for the first time my vision of what these parking platforms could look like with just a little imagination. I hope you'll agree that this bold initiative meets the criteria set for the implementation of the parking strategy. As written and accepted by the community stakeholders, there is literally no place to go but up in the city of Rochester, where you live. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rob Shaner, and I'm the Superintendent of Rochester Community Schools. And I'm Super High School jock Rob Shaner, and I was a good running back. The key to a well-run school system is a strategic plan, stewardship of tax dollars, and a child-centered education. Being a super jock superintendent means having great sports teams and giving kids lots of snow days off of school. I'm still in awe of what a great school system I am privileged to lead. And I'm still captain of the team, and I still remember how many touchdowns I scored 40 years ago back in high school that I can still brag about. Don't be like this me. Move on with life. Concentrate on that which is important, a great education.
Hi, I'm Terry Gonser, proud American and Supervisor of Oakland Township. Now there's a lot going on in the township. This spring we will take delivery of a new fax machine, and we also have plans to have the township vehicle in for an oil change around June. What I am really focused on, however, is the threat growing right under our noses. Radical terrorists? No. Worse, invasive species. In Oakland Township, we are going to war with these infidels, and to help our residents out, I've created a set of playing cards to help identify this ongoing insurgency. The Ace of Spades. This is the marsh thistle. Whoa, Nelly, you see this one, you call me immediately. The Ace of Hearts, that's the autumn olive, found mostly in the lawless eastern province of the township. The Ace of Clubs, ironically, that's actually a 3-leaf clover. It actually looks a lot like that. Anyway, Americans, I've raised the threat level to red, white, and blue, and I will not stop until we bring these radicals to justice. I'm Terry Gonser, proud American patriot, and that's what's happening in Oakland Township.
Good morning. I'm Rochester Hills Mayor Brian K. Barnett, and it's my pleasure to speak with you at this year's Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce Community Outlook Breakfast. As you all know, through my relentless efforts to tell you, Rochester Hills was recently ranked by Money Magazine as one of the top 10, number 9 in fact, cities in which to live with populations between 50,000 and 300,000, and the first in Michigan amongst such communities. I thought it would be helpful to show you a few of the other contributing factors to this wonderful recognition. Money Magazine said, residents looking for a main drag packed with restaurants and shops can pop over to Rochester. But anyone who knows about the strengths of Rochester Hills knows our city's quality of life offerings like the Rochester Hills Public Library, the Rochester Avon Recreational Authority, the Older Persons Commission. In closing, I'd like to thank all of you and the City of Rochester for helping make Rochester Hills the preeminent place to live, work, and raise your family.
Well, I think we're done.
All downhill.
Yeah, all downhill from here. Well, it's always nice to have a little humor in our day, is it not? Let's give them a big round of applause. Okay, geez, that's going to be a hard act to follow.
Yes, it is.
We have got a lot of great questions. You sent them in on email, you've handed them to us this morning, and we're going to try and make this go very quickly. Not too many rapid fire type of questions, but some are for all and some are for just a handful. So let's get started and see what we got. Let's talk first about, and this was mentioned I think in some of the videos, and that is really about how our communities are changing. The demographics are changing, population is aging, young and old, maybe not wanting such large homes. So what is your community doing to address these issues and to encourage young people to move in? Why don't we just start here and go down the line? Mayor Barnett.
Sure, thank you, Carla. It's a great point. The demographics are changing. I've looked at the average age of a resident of Rochester Hills is a 39.6, actually, which makes us, might not sound old, but makes us a relatively older community on average. And as you look at what the market's doing, a lot of times, two things. You have to be proactive as a community to make sure that the city in general is conducive and is open and is easy to do business in for the market, which ultimately drives what's changing, what's happening in your community, right? So as I mentioned in the press conference, City of Rochester Hills has, at the moment, 3 significant senior citizen housing complexes under some stage of development. They're operating on the, 2 of them are operating on the north side of South Boulevard. Chose the north side of South Boulevard for one reason, I'm certain of it, because of the OPC. Right? So we have such a great OPC and such a driving force, a magnet for senior citizens in Southeast Michigan, that we're seeing that change how operations work, how the city works, what kind of projects we're seeing. Even some of the condominiums, the site condos that are being built single story, I think in the tip of the hat to the fact that the community, as you mentioned, is aging and really wants to be here in large measure for the OPC.
Great. Supervisor Gonser.
Well, unlike my neighbors that have #1 cities, we don't have to encourage people to come to Oakland Township. We've led the entire area in the past 2 years in new housing permits. We had 210 in 2013. We had 160 last year, and we've had 10 so far in January. So we're on track to beat even last year. And the average price of those new homes is $800,000, if you can imagine. So people are just scrambling to get into Oakland Township. The real challenge here is the folks that are there want to keep it rural. And with so many people wanting to come, that's a very difficult thing to balance, is growth with rural character. But we're working on that. Relative to the OPC, that's certainly a magnet for all of our communities. I serve as vice chair on the board of directors for OPC, and I can tell you that it's truly a world-class organization. and it is a major draw for seniors in our area.
Thank you. Mayor Cuthbertson.
It's a great question and a very timely one, I think. In the city of Rochester, we think leveraging our downtown to create residential development within that footprint is going to draw a younger demographic. And right now we have either approved or under construction over 200 new units of downtown living opportunities. So we think that'll be an immediate term help in terms of a younger demographic coming to our city. One area that I think we do as a city face a challenge in is housing for growing families in the range between $250,000 and $400,000. We wanted, through the implementation of tax policy that overlays our new master plan, a tax policy that encourages development for housing stock inside of that range, where growing families can afford to stay in the city of Rochester. And we have a lot of great rental apartment options, and we have a lot of great starter homes that are available to families, and then a great deal of higher end housing stock. And it's meeting that gap in between that we think will continue growth for families in Rochester. So we're going to be looking at that this calendar year at City Council and how we encourage that particular segment.
Thank you. Dr. Shaner, how are schools impacted by these changing demographics?
We're impacted greatly. This is probably the first time in Rochester Community Schools history for a long time that we've experienced declining enrollment. And one of the questions they get quite often is, well, where are they going? And the honest answer is they're not going anywhere. The demographics of the community are truly changing. So there's two things that I think are really important for the school district. One of them is to continue a really high level of stewardship, making sure we're adjusting our business plan to our enrollment. And also partnerships. In order to be an attractive school district, we need to have strong partnerships with universities, colleges, our municipal partners, as well as businesses. And our strategic plan is helping us to focus in that direction.
Great. Well, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Mr. Mayor of Rochester, how's that downtown parking deck doing? Have you had any problems? And would you please address the issue of the fact that the meters have been increasing so much that with a limit of 2 hours, it's difficult sometimes to have an uninterrupted dinner?
Sure. So there may be a misconception that it's 2 hours. It's actually 3 hours on street. That was feedback that we got very early to the Parking Advisory Committee, was that it may be hard to do an appointment and a meal inside of 2 hours, and so we changed that policy pretty quickly. As it relates to the parking platform, Frank Rewell and Son is leading our team in that hole in the ground right now. It's actually coming along very well. We've had, I believe, 4 or 5 days impacted by the cold weather in terms of pouring, but the excavation is largely complete for the foundations that are going in, and the week of, next week, middle of next week, we're going to be moving to starting the west parking platform. So things are happening quickly and moving forward. There's going to be a couple of months while both lots are down and in construction that we recognize is going to cause some pain, and it is going to be a challenge. But you know, we're making an investment, and when we come to the other side of it, obviously, I think the community is going to be very pleased with the outcome. So, you know, bear with us. The cold weather certainly poses a particular challenge, but we have also implemented a shuttle system, shuttle bus, that will be making laps between the parking that is available, including next to the Rochester Mills Brewery, and we'll be able to shuttle people downtown as well. So we're doing the things we think are reasonably possible to make this period better. But there's no question that we're in the middle of another construction project.
Crittenden Hospital was an independent community hospital and is now going through their due diligence to be acquired by one of perhaps the largest healthcare systems in the country. What impact will this have on residents, businesses, and your organizations? Why don't we start with Supervisor Gonser?
I don't expect a real big change. We partner very closely with our ALS fire and EMS folks with Crittenden, and I see no change in that relationship. In fact, we have now set up systems where heart attack victims or stroke victims, once they are picked up by the ALS unit, their vitals are forwarded to Crittenden. So when they hit the ER, the doctors there already know what the condition is. They're immediately ready to respond. And indeed, we've set the fastest, I think they call it door to balloon time, that was ever seen. It was 5 minutes. So this is critical, but back to the question, I don't see that changing. That need is not going to go away. And I think it's Crittenden's and the new hospital administration will do everything they can to maintain that relationship.
Mayor Cuthbertson?
I think anything that strengthens a community asset like Crittenden Hospital is a positive. Obviously, there's going to be changes as a potential acquisition takes place and integration into a larger chain, but on balance, I think that everyone in this room should be taking a look at it as a step forward for healthcare in our community. Crittenden has provided a great level of care, and I think that this undertaking will, be a good thing for us.
Mayor Barnett?
Yeah, I would agree. In full disclosure, I have sat on the board of Crittenden Hospital over the last 7 years, and so I've seen this process take place. And it's a unique position for me because also as the mayor, Crittenden is my largest employer. So it's a unique vantage point, and I can tell you from as a board member of Crittenden that I'm really excited about this. And if you look at, as we've talked with and negotiated with the folks from Ascension, and even if you've seen some of the media coverage about it in Cranes and in other publications, most people who are familiar with this are really excited because it is truly a marriage of good partners. Where Crittenden is strong, Ascension is weak, and where Ascension is weak, Crittenden is strong. Did I say that wrong? I'm a little pro-Crittenden, but that's all right. And they really desire to be in this marketplace, and they're coming in with resources that can boost and strengthen Crittenden Hospital. So I'm really excited about this from two standpoints. Number one, I think you're going to have an even higher performing hospital. We all love Crittenden. They're a major part of who we are as a community. They've supported probably all of the nonprofits that are in the room, and probably many of you volunteered with them in the past. And they're going to be in a better position to continue to serve our residents in the future. So I think it's an absolute win-win, and the more this community finds out about the strength of Ascension and the way that they're keeping a lot of local control with Crittenden, I think you'll be very, very excited and proud.
Thank you. Dr. Shaner, would you tell us about what's new in the new Rochester Community Schools strategic plan, and perhaps a little bit about what role does our local businesses have in that plan?
Absolutely. I could talk about it for hours, actually.
Okay,
I won't do that to you today.
Sorry, only a minute.
Couple minutes.
But there are so many things that are exciting about the strategic plan. I think one of the most exciting things is our core beliefs. The board is adopted as part of the strategic plan, and things that are commitments of the organization. But specifically, like I mentioned in the film, one of the things we're really excited about is our K-12 World Language Program. It's going to take a few years to get there, but we're really excited that we'll be able to offer languages from elementary school on. Our partnership with the Confucius Institute, which is really a testament to the hard work of some really talented people that I'm blessed to work with, really happened in a short period of time and is a really strong relationship. The mayor and I were just talking about how much his daughter's enjoying the Chinese program at North Hill. That's right. And it's really fascinating to watch how quickly elementary kids can pick up a language in a short period of time. Partnerships are critically important to the school district, and as the nature of education changes from content to instruction, experiential learning is critically important, and our business partners play a major role in that. So we'll continue to look forward to building those and improving them.
Thank you. Well, of course, there's lots of questions about roads. Where to start? Perhaps I would like just a yes/no answer. Where do you stand on the road ballot proposal, which I think is proposal 1, that will come up in the May election? Mayor Barnett? This is a yes, no.
Yes or no answer.
Yes, I support it. No, I don't.
All right, I'm going to take a minor liberty. Our roads need work, but this proposal is not good. I won't be supporting it.
Say that again?
Our roads need fixing. If anybody lives in Rochester Hills, you know that. We need revenue, but this proposal is extremely watered down and it loses focus.
So that's a no.
That's a no.
Supervisor Gonser.
Can I give an explanation? No.
Mayor Cuthbertson.
Mayor Barnett said it best. I agree. For me, it's a no for those reasons.
So let's go back and talk about perhaps a little bit more why, but let's talk about road projects. What's planned for 2015? If you're recommending no in May, how are we going to address the issues that are out there? And for Rochester, there was a specific question about the South Street Rehab Project or bridge in that area. Mayor Barnett.
So it's a great question. How do you fund roads if I've just said that I'm not supportive of the state measure? And the more information that rolls out about there, I'm sure people encourage everyone to become educated on it. In Rochester Hills, I'm really proud. Many of our members of the city council are here. And through, I think, exceptional planning and really in large measure good financial management over the last 5 years and through the recession, we've banked money to be able to put into what is our residents' consistent #1 concern, addressing the condition of our local roads. So this year, we are going to have the most local road work done than in any year since probably the 1980s when we were building new subdivisions. And it's largely because we've saved first and are spending second. Which, of course, if you look at the measure for the bill in May, the first $2 billion goes to paying debt that Governor Engler, that was accrued under Governor Engler back 10 years ago. So we have a different model in Rochester Hills, save first, spend second. The road work being done this year, of course, I don't know, is anybody familiar with a road called Tinkin? We're going to finish that project this year. The city council, and I think a brilliant move, fast-forwarded the funding to get the rest of it done this year. The county wasn't going to do it until next year. So from the roundabout to Adams High School will be completely redone, and then from the roundabout east, we're going to take down that hill by the bowling alley about 8 feet, so there'll be considerable work on Tinkin this year. And the other major arterial road that's going to be done is Hamlin Road. Again, I love being able to reference from the roundabout to the eastern city border of DeQuinder. So our major roads last year that were done were Tinkin and Avon, and there's only 1 mile in between, so Walton took a lot of pressure last year. This year there'll be 2-mile roads in between, so it should be easier to get around town. But our residents consistently tell us that road work is the #1 concern, and the council and the administration are putting our money where our mouth is and investing in that again this year.
Thank you. Mayor Cuthbertson, how are we going to do it?
Sure. So I think it's very important that we recognize that the state of Michigan has something like a $53 billion budget. Now, a lot of that are restricted funds and funds that come from the federal government. But there are a lot of resources inside of state government that I think need to be looked at and made more efficient as a part of the revenue solution that will go into roads. For example, the city of Rochester during the economic downturn cut, without affecting services, something like 25% of general fund spending. Now, I have to imagine that we have a great governor with a great legislature that have some very bright people that can get inside that budget and find some savings to put to roads before they come and ask us to open our wallets. Now, there are other questions that relate to how do you make the construction project more affordable. There are prevailing wage discussions. There's an opportunity to look at that. It's obviously it's an emotional issue. It's one that will obviously garner a great deal of discussion. But for me, as a taxpayer and as a community leader, I think challenging our leaders in Lansing to do more with what they have has to be a part of the solution. And when I see that done and a plan for road funding that fixes our roads, that is still deficient in revenue, then I think I can get behind a ballot proposal or another solution that raises more revenue. So, I don't think it's our job at the local level to explain how we think roads ought to be funded. I think the legislature and the governor's office needs to take that up with a great deal with energy, and because we all recognize it's an issue. Now, as the question relates to Rochester, North Main this spring will have new curbs and an overlay done on it. It will be something like a 4 to 6 week project. There will be 3 lanes open at all times. There will be some inconvenience, but that is the last major road project that we see needing to get done on our major surface streets. Neighborhood streets, secondary roads, obviously, continue to be a priority. Rochester has historically and will continue to fund at a very high level our road projects. South Street was a question specifically asked. The city had our goals and objectives meeting, our annual budget planning kickoff on Saturday. And that project was discussed in great detail. And we have asked administration to come back with what looks like a 2-part plan for reconstruction of that area, along with the installation of sidewalks and some basic street lighting, as well as a longer-term plan that would build a bridge to connect South Street to Letica. That is probably a longer-term project that we'll be looking at. And the council's position on it was very clear. We want a plan with a funding process for doing it within the next 3 years that we can commit to and get done. We have discussed this for several years, and changing economic priorities have shifted when we're actually going to pull the trigger on that project. But this budget will deliver an answer, and it is an answer that will be held to account to the public to get South Street rebuilt. And we think that's a wonderful opportunity. South Street is a hidden industrial area in our community that we think is ripe for redevelopment. So from an economic policy standpoint, we think it makes sense. It's just fitting in with all the other budget priorities that exist.
Thank you. Supervisor Gonser?
Roads are near and dear to my heart. I've always paid a lot of attention to them, and as an engineer, know a lot about them. I want to, number one, reflect what Mayor Cuthbertson just said relative to state funding. I think he articulated my position extremely well, so I won't reiterate that. The township is in a unique position relative to my 2 neighbors here, in that we are governed by state law, number one. Number two, the county owns all our roads, which is true in every township. Townships do not own roads, counties do. So we are beholden to the county for any road improvements. Now, with that said, many townships across the state contribute to road improvement. And it's many millions of dollars across the state, 1,240 townships. We have, very fortunately in Oakland Township, a very healthy fund balance. Plant Moran, our auditor, tells us we should have about $1.5 million in a fund balance, a rainy day fund. We have $5.5 million in there, and it continues to grow. So last year we actually improved a couple roads with township money, and we're going through a budget process right now, and it's my fervent hope that we put money in there, township money in there, taxpayers' money. It's their money, and it's their roads. And the number one complaint we get in the township, I'm sure as in the cities, is the condition of the roads. And we have 44 miles of dirt roads, just to give you an example. It's not too many paved roads other than the main arteries. So it's my fervent hope that we can put money in the budget. I'm hoping enough people come to the public hearing on March 10th, when we consider the budget, to impress the board that this is a priority, not only for today, but looking into the future. And I think as government officials, it's our duty, it's incumbent upon us to plan strategically into the future. How do we make our communities better 25 years, 50 years down the road? And roads is probably the number one way we can do that. So we're going to try some new things. I just had a meeting on Monday with the managing director of the Road Commission, and he's very supportive. And we're going to try some experimental things in Oakland Township. It's used many areas around here. It's called chip seal or tar and chip. It's used in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa. You'll notice those states have very few dirt roads because over the years they've tarred and chipped, and after a few years it becomes like asphalt. But it doesn't increase the load rating on the road. It doesn't increase the number of cars per mile or cars per day that the load rating relates to. But it definitely improves the surface of the road. It's even used in Michigan in all the surrounding counties. Oakland County has not used it in the past. But I do have an agreement with them that they're going to try some test strips, a couple miles of road in Oakland Township, if we can talk our board into funding it. So I'm very excited that this is an opportunity that we should not miss. And as I say, the board will see the wisdom in road improvement for our citizens. It is their money. They're the citizens, the taxpayers. I think it's absolutely improper for us to be taking citizens' money, putting it into a fund that's earning, 20, 30 basis points, which is essentially nothing, and withholding that money from improvements that the citizens can use each and every day. And it improves the safety, it improves the quality of life, improves the maintenance of the investment they make in their automobiles. So I think there's just simply no downside to it. It's just we have to have the fortitude, political fortitude, to go forward with it.
Thank you. Dr. Shaner, could you please address the initiatives within the district to attract and retain talented, dynamic teachers?
Sure. It's interesting as we're talking about state funding and roads and how complicated of an issue that is. And I think that's impacted us being able to attract the best and the brightest to the profession of teaching. As kids are coming out of college nowadays with engineering degrees and things like that, making very lucrative salaries, you see that in education that's been a struggle. One of the things that we try to attract the best and the brightest, and quite frankly, that's an easy thing to do in a school district like Rochester, because it's a great school district, it's well run, the resources are under the public care with great stewardship. So the things that we attract our staff with is great professional development, good leadership, great facilities, and one of the best things about our school district is the community and the parents and the students. So it's an easy thing to attract talent that way. It's really a challenge to try to keep it.
So this is for everybody. What proactive steps are being taken to, I'm sorry, it's for the three community leaders. What proactive steps are being taken to preserve the natural and agricultural features, the aesthetic values, and the community characteristics in a region, given the explosive renewal of development and land conversion? What are we doing to preserve lands, parks, waters? Supervisor Gonser, you want to start with that one?
Lucky me. As I mentioned earlier, one of the challenges in Oakland Township is, because we are a rural township, to maintain that character. And that is the number one thing on residents' list of desires in the township, is maintain a rural character. And obviously, there's a lot of folks that want to develop the property. So it's a very fine balance between private property rights and community goals. We're just beginning the process of a new master land plan for the township. The old master land plan, many people said it preserves the rural character, but when you dive into it, you find out that's not necessarily true. Indeed, I did a land audit last summer, and it turns out that other than one plot of land, every large acreage plot of land in the township is owned by a developer. So there's a lot of pressure in that direction. So this is going to be a real challenge with this new master land plan to come up with a plan that respects private property rights and yet tries to diminish the pressure of development. And of course, with that goes a number of new zoning ordinances. I think we can get there. As I say, it's going to be a challenge. And I think one of the challenges also is, how do you define rural? I think we've done a pretty good job of it so far, but there's certainly parts of the township that I think anyone would candidly say is not rural, particularly in the Southwest District, where we have known as a $1 billion mile along Adams Road. A lot of development. So
That's where you live, right?
yeah, that's where I live. I live on the east side, in the ghetto side of the township.
Well, you just said that?
It must be the beard.
There's your headline, folks.
What the supervisor meant to say was.
Believe me, I often say the wrong thing, and I have a number of people come to board meetings to remind me of it. So. But it's interesting, when I moved into the township, well, actually I moved here in 1952, but when I moved back when GM transferred me up here in 1993, the realtors told us, do not move on the east side of Rochester Road. That's not a desirable area of the township. Guess where we moved? The east side of Rochester Road. But it's a very beautiful area. We're across from Stony Creek Park, so I say that in jest. I guess I lost my train of thought. But overall, to sum it up, we have a challenge to keep it rural, and the new master plan is going to have to address that issue one way or another. And then the zoning ordinances are going to have to be put in place to support that vision. And hopefully that vision comes out that Oakland Township will be more rural.
Thank you. So the questions about natural and agricultural features and preserving aesthetic values in the region. Mayor Barnett, would you like to address that?
Sure, I'll try and address it succinctly with two things. Supervisor Gonser mentioned the challenge of a lot of times you don't own the land. Well, fortunately, the residents of Rochester Hills about 10 years ago passed a millage to preserve green space, and over the past 8 or 9 years, the city's been very proactive in taking lands that were owned privately and now bringing them under the city's ownership and preserving those permanently for protection. We just picked up probably the best thing we've ever done in 8 years of green space preservation with the Dr. White property, which abuts the Riverbend Park property, about 47 acres that's absolutely pristine that now will be protected for generations to come. And the last thing I would mention about what we're doing is something I announced at the press conference this morning, and there's a little bit of information in your bag at your table, and that was announcing our One Home, One Tree program that we launched this morning to try to get the city of Rochester Hills, in recognition of our 25th anniversary as being recognized as a tree city, to plant 25,000 trees to improve our tree canopy over the next 12 months. We have 26,000 homes. We want one home to plant one tree. And we've got a bunch of things that we're getting that program underway, including a nice partnership with the schools where we're taking our sort of famous iconic tree that's on all of our badges and all of our literature and planting America's largest bab oak, planting baby bab oaks at all the parks and at all the schools, and just trying to preach that importance of that generational message of protecting your environment and doing something proactive to do it.
Mayor Cuthbertson?
Sure. Well, obviously Rochester is probably the most developed of the three communities, and so I'm not sure that preserving rural character is really our mission because, frankly, we're not very rural. That said, we have a very healthy and mature park system that we treasure as a community, and we're doing the sort of things from a funding standpoint, from a budget standpoint, to give our Parks Department the resources to make sure that they're kept in the way that we expect. Very recently, we've had a complete, I don't want to call it a rebuild, but a renovation and rehabilitation of the Paint Creek from Dinosaur Hill, roughly, to the library that has been funded largely by a grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, and we're moving on to phase 3 of that. And it's put over $1 million into the Paint Creek to protect and restore its natural setting. And by the way, it's the last trout-producing stream, cold water trout-producing stream in Oakland County and maybe in southeast Michigan. So it's really a treasure at the core of the city. I'd like to switch a little bit to talk about how we're going to preserve Rochester's character as a community with a great deal of development and redevelopment occurring. One of the things that sets us apart as a city, I think, is our historic character, that we have a natural downtown form and community that's grown organically over time. And for the first time, after 3 attempts, this past year, the city of Rochester has passed a historic district ordinance aimed at protecting important historic resources in our community. Now, that used to be a third rail, that idea of historic districts in Rochester. What we've done is we've made it an opt-in environment. That is to say, if you own a historic building and you want to protect it, that you will then approach through an outreach program that we're undertaking to get people to opt in and to create some success stories that this isn't a overly restrictive or nightmare process or outcome for a historic building. And so we think that is an essential building block in making sure that we protect Rochester's historic background while we grow at the same time. I believe that we can have both, and I believe that we're encouraging policies that do just that. Now, one thing that has provided some teeth to the ordinance is we have allowed for up to 12 properties to be designated as Rochester landmark properties, that if we ever receive a demo permit or a construction permit that materially changes those buildings, that the city can declare a moratorium to begin to discuss what is happening to these absolutely essential landmark properties. So we're doing what we believe is appropriate and fair in a property rights context, but still preserves the very thing that sets us apart and makes Rochester unique.
Excuse me? Really quickly.
Okay.
Because we are running out of time, and we've got lots of questions.
I didn't completely address the question. I do want to say that Oakland Township has both a land preservation fund and a parks fund. So we have put 1,100 acres, taken it out of the public area and put it into parkland. We also have two major parks, Stony Creek and Bald Mountain, account for about 2,600 acres. We have about 1,100 acres in green space. So we have, out of our 36 square miles, 220,000 acres or so, we have over 5,000 acres of land that's been set aside.
Thank you. Okay, we are running out of time. I've got a couple of quick questions, and I guess I would ask you to keep your comments as brief as possible, but still answer the question. So there's a number of questions here about the visibility and of the recent shortcomings of local mass public transit. If you missed it, problems with our public transportation were highlighted in a recent Free Press story written by Bill Leitner about a man whose only goal was to work in a community 4 communities away where he lived. If a Rochester area resident needs to go to, say, a doctor 1 community away, in Auburn Hills, let's say, or Troy, they cannot take public transportation. What is your prediction of when we will be able to jump on a good quality public transportation in Rochester and get to the doctor, the theater, or even Metro Airport? Mayor Barnett.
Well, that's a short answer. All right. And this is a challenging response because I personally believe that Metro Detroit, the region, needs a much better public transportation system. I absolutely and fervently believe that. The challenge is when it comes to how does that look, how is that reflected in your community? I represent the people of Rochester Hills, the folks that would absolutely have to pay for that program. And so trying to find that balance of what works in our community and what works regionally, while not trying to seem like you don't want to play with the region, is a real challenge. As a matter of fact, if anybody wants to join me, my 2 o'clock meeting today, the SMART folks are coming to meet with me, and we're going to begin to have an additional dialogue about what a proposal might look like in our community. But at the end of the day, the residents of Rochester Hills are the ones that are going to be asked to support this and to pay for it. And so we have a very educated electorate, and I trust that they'll do the cost-benefit analysis once if it's determined that a program is needed. I would point out, and I've pointed this out in all the media that I've done on this topic, and that residents of Rochester Hills do pay a millage for public transportation. It goes to the OPC, and the OPC takes about 55,000 trips a year, or about 160 trips today. So we do have, it doesn't answer your question if your doctor is in Auburn Hills, but if your doctor is in Rochester, Rochester Hills, or Oakland Township, you certainly have a way to get around currently. The larger question is broad. I couldn't put a date on when it will happen, but I know I've got a meeting at 2 today.
Supervisor Gonser.
I think that really doesn't affect Oakland Township because it's so diverse and we have no employment centers per se. We do contribute to the OPC Transportation Fund, so anyone over 50 that wants to travel through the 3 municipalities have that opportunity.
Mayor Cuthbertson.
Sure. Rochester participates in the same program with SMART and OPC, so that's the first point. The second point is this is a regional solution. It's not one that Rochester Hills, and Oakland Township are going to solve today, tomorrow, or 5 years from now. This is clearly an issue that needs to be coordinated region-wide. Obviously, the situation that provoked the discussion in a more fervent and meaningful way, I think, is a positive thing, and I'm very glad to see the outcome from that story. In fact, Blake Pollock was the gentleman, he actually lives in Rochester, that was picking up Mr. Robertson and driving him, and I've had a chance to talk with him about the situation specifically. But right now we have SMART, we have DDOT, we have an RTA, Regional Transit Authority, that was created by the legislature a couple of years ago, that body for the first time will have authority to create a plan and implement it across all 3 counties. And I think that's the only way that this actually gets solved in a meaningful and thorough way. A bus-only solution, I don't think, is one that the public will embrace. I think it's going to involve rail at some level. But as the point's been made, how do you pay for it? How do you make sure that it creates value for all the communities involved? To that end, I'm actually having a meeting for lunch today with the RTA Executive Director, with the city manager.
You got lunch out of it.
Yeah, right?
And I got left out.
Thank you. Dr. Shaner, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, actually I would. We have a strong partner with the OPC as well in the transportation. They do help us out from time to time. But the comment I'd like to make more is about the larger picture here in terms of working together for change in a progressive kind of way. And I think the May 5th ballot proposal is also a really good example of that. Whether you're for it or whether you're against it, get involved in the conversation and let's forge a workable solution for everybody. I think the gentleman that was walking from Detroit there every day to work, regardless of who pays for it or where the money comes from, I think we'd all agree that that's probably an unacceptable situation, that someone has to walk 20 miles to work, and we need to forge a solution that accommodates someone like that.
Last question. What are and quickly please, excuse me, the answers. What are the 3 greatest attributes of your community or school district? And we'll start with Mayor Cuthbertson.
Thank you for putting me first. Well, I think, number one, the people who live in Rochester are ultimately our strength. I think that would be for any community. So that's number one. Number two, I think being a community with a historic downtown center obviously is a strength and something that people value very much. And I think third is that from a government standpoint, Rochester and our community is small enough to be responsive and to provide a high level of service that really is attentive and delivers, at a very very sophisticated level for government. And I think people see that and take pride in being a part of a community that has a high standard of service. And so, with 10 seconds to respond, I think those are 3 positive things I'd want to highlight.
Great, Dr. Shaner.
Oh, I would say number one is the kids and the parents and our staff. I'm very blessed to work in a school district that's not only in 3 outstanding communities, but also surrounded by wonderful people that have a very strong focus, child-centered philosophy.
Supervisor Gonser?
I think number one has to be the people. Oakland Township is blessed with a very considerate and educated populace, very involved. Couldn't ask for anything more there. I think the area itself sells itself, being rural, and I think good government is probably the last. We, as I mentioned in the video, we're the only municipality in the state of Michigan to reduce taxes 2 years in a row. And I think that shows a great deal of responsibility on the part of government officials to run the government very efficiently, and I think the people appreciate that.
Mayor Barnett.
Well, I would agree that it's the people first and foremost, and I would describe them as, in Rochester Hills, as innovative and compassionate. Innovative in the sense that I know that residents and businesses of Rochester Hills apply for and get a patent every single day, about 365 a year, and compassionate because I've seen our community respond to situations, whether it be an illness of a student or a homebound senior or whatever, and just raise tens of thousands of dollars over a weekend because they care about this community. The people first. The second thing, and I'm not trying to suck up because my kids are in the Rochester School District, but we are so blessed to have great schools. Great cities have great schools. And the fact that we have both Rochester Community Schools, Avondale Schools, Oakland University, and Rochester College allows us to really be the educational epicenter of our region. You can't underestimate that. And finally, I think, as mentioned, the intangibles, the quality of life, the beauty of our community, the rivers, the trails, the nonprofits, the library, the OPC, all those things. The reason you're here today is probably because you're interested and engaged in this community. Something in this community has reached out and grabbed your attention, and you could be doing a lot of other things, but you're here to get an update because you love where you live, and I think that's a really cool thing that makes us unique.
So I'd like to personally thank every single one of you for being on our panel tonight, and ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big hand for our Rochester Big Four.
Carla, hold on. I have a gift to give to all my panelists here, and to you as moderator. Terry, Bob.
As Jeff is doing that, I'd like to draw
one last plug.
I'd like to draw everyone's attention to the candy bar in their bag, which I think sums it up all very nicely today.
Is there any way to
It
turn
says
off these
3 out of
mics?
4 leaders agree, and you know which one's not in there.
Thank you, gentlemen. Just stay where you are. Don't move. Don't move. All right. I heard about the aging population, so I feel it necessary to remind you who I am. My name's still David Walker. Thanks for all sticking around. And thank you, gentlemen, for your superb handling of the new format. Great job. I think we ought to give them a round of applause. But for doing such a great job, we have a small token of our appreciation. My assistant, where's the lovely lady? Sherry Heine, everybody. Sherry Heine. All right, Carla, get one? We also want to recognize the folks that are taping this, the Rochester Hills Media Department. You see them way there in the back, Jason Dale. Give a big shout out to Jason. Jason, thank you. Is Eric here? Eric's working? Well, we have something for Eric and Jason because they do a great job, and they're the ones who put that video together, so you know the quality and talent.
They're the ones that will be cutting out his ghetto comment earlier today.
That'll save my...
It should, yeah. What's
And
left
probably
of it?
my portion as well, eh?
And everything that Jeff said.
It's likely. All right, so in conclusion, that concludes our program, but I would like to thank some of our sponsors, obviously Shelton Buick GMC, Oakland University, really appreciate that. Thank you, Dr. Hine. The Chamber partners and the table sponsors for today's event, we truly appreciate all the work of the City of Rochester Hills media team and all of you folks for showing up today. So, we thank you for attending the Chamber Outlook Community Breakfast, and as Sherry Heine always says, now go create commerce. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Those videos were fun.
Always a pleasure.